Hey, welcome back to Lily's Bonsai. Hope you're doing well. Now, you would have seen in the previous clip me collecting these two large stumps. This was in response to a Facebook post. A gentleman was looking to get rid of some garden waste. Now, I'm not really in the business of collecting garden waste, however, I'm in the business of collecting free bonsai material. The actual post itself was just a picture of some foliage on a lawn. One piece that caught my eye was this golden privet, or Ligustrum, ovalifolium, Aureum, if I'm pronouncing that right. This other one here was a bit of a mystery. I was tied between a birch and a hazel. Looking at this kind of oranginess in here now, I'm thinking maybe that's a birch. This one maybe it's been cut a little bit low, but I didn't really have any control over that. That was already done prior to me getting there. But this one I think really does have some potential. Now, time did slip us a little bit yesterday collecting these, but I parked them up in this barrow and I gave them a little mist over with a hose and just covered them with soil. I didn't have any control over obviously the timing of this, and I did initially think maybe we're a week or two early. I didn't obviously get to see again the foliar mass and the kind of the condition of the buds. But looking around, obviously as I have been doing, I've been monitoring my trees, and buds did seem to be swelling quite early this year. Things like this forsythia, really starting to push now. We've actually got one out on the drive in a fairly sheltered spot, actually, quite shady, and it's actually flowering already. So it kind of shows you that this is really a cold greenhouse. And looking across the bench there, I've got hawthorn, hornbeam, prunus, maples, all really starting to swell now. Obviously there's still that element of getting caught out by bad weather, so definitely tread with caution, as it were, if you are going to start repotting trees and things like that. So given the right soil mix and some protection if we do get some bad weather, I don't see any reason why these can't make a good recovery and push out some new growth and be on the way to being some usable material. So you can see there, other than these big roots, we actually didn't do much damage collecting this, and I didn't really hang about with it, you know. I just cut round the tree, sort of undercut, lifted up, and out it came. It wasn't really too much of a battle. So let's give this a dip in here, save doing any more damage to the roots. Find this or a hose pipe is the easiest way. And obviously you get away with this on deciduous trees, but you wouldn't get away with this with an evergreen or a pine, or, you know, not a mature one anyway. Younger trees you may well get away with that, but I'm not going to recommend it. So we've got an absolute beast of a root on this side, an overlapping root there as well. So we've got a little bit of a mess to unpick there. There's a little bit of evidence from it being in a pot there, but it's not too bad. Lots of fine root left as well, so this is what's going to keep this alive. Things like this are not going to do anything for this tree other than get in the way of us getting it into a pot. So really my main concern here initially is going to be dealing with that really big root there, because the rest of it's fairly straightforward. Now that is a beast of a root. It's going to take a little bit of... I don't think that one we're going to actually be able to do anything with either. So I think I'm just going to cut that as close down to there as I can, really. Probably behind where that other root's crossed over. There we go, that will do for now. So that's that out of the way. And we can set about getting the saw onto that in a minute. Now looking around this, it actually doesn't have a bad flare, and you can see it doesn't really have an issue putting out new roots. And normally you find where you see these little markings here, it's kind of the beginning of some new roots as well. I don't know what to call those, but I've kind of seen it where the soil level's been brought up and then you start getting that kind of, a bit like callousing on an air layer. But normally you'll start to throw roots out of there. So if there's a good free drained soil around there that is damp up to that level, we should pull some new roots, especially with this kind of root pruning process going on. I think I'm going to try and cut this one first. This is the thing with this, it's a bit of a puzzle unpicking it. So I'm just going to cut that one there. That was a better cut that time. I'm just wondering whether we just run the saw through this as harsh as we can across there. I don't really want to upset. See, there's some nice roots there as well, but we're never going to get that out without doing a little bit of damage there. So obviously with this video, you really are getting what you see as it comes. You know, this is as much a mystery to me as it was to you. We've literally just washed the mud off, and this is what we've got to deal with. So I'm kind of thinking it through as I'm making this. See, I don't mind this part. It's just whether we can get to it any other way. Let's see. Before we make any rash decisions, let's clear a bit of this out. It's all well and good leaving some of this, but if we damage it with a saw, it won't really come to a lot, and it will just risk rotting off in the pot. So that's obviously going to be useless. That. Okay, so there's a little void under there and there, so that means we can get rid of this as well. So we're gaining access to this bigger root, so we can make a better decision. We'll come in from the top there. There we go. It's another big root out the way. You can see now we're really flattening this off, and we're only, you know, we haven't took much off of it yet. I'm starting to think some of that could go, but let's carry on slowly working our way through. So even with all that thrashing around and dipping, we've still got a lot of mud in there. And I would call this mud. It's not really nice soil or anything. Okay, so taking that long one across out of there has given us a little bit more access to this. So I'm starting to think now, I'm going to carefully cut into this bulbous big one here and try and free it away from this piece, because that's actually a nice shape. And it'd actually be nicer to have that than have a horrible cut there, right? The less things you have to think about when you're doing a job like this, the better. You know, I don't want to be worrying about, am I snagging these roots every 2 minutes? I just want to get that large cut out the way. So if I can just tie them out the way a little bit for now, it will minimise damage to them. So we've got a lot more vision now of this. I don't want to cut into this mass if I can avoid it. I just want to kind of cut across, and I want to try and come up into it really, because then we can get it as low as you know, the rest of it there. So I'm just gonna start there. That has gone pretty much to plan. So there was actually not quite a fusion, but it looked fused together the way that was sitting there. And I think we've actually got the best possible outcome there. And again, we can trim up this here. I'm quite happy that that can just get plopped down flat. Not the prettiest thing under there, but look at that at the top there. We've not actually put any horrible cuts in it, and it's kind of an interesting feature. We're not really going to get much more off the bottom of that, especially with this lump here. I don't think it's worth let's have a little look. So even if that did go down flat, it's still going to contact that big root there. So now we need to investigate that one. Yeah, so what's happened here is this big root has come from the bottom, probably when this was in a nursery pot. It's come up pot bound, gone up and sort of fused itself in there. Now, I dare say we could probably cut that out. Whether that would then die off, more than likely, because it's probably not actually feeding in that way. It comes right round there. I think we'll unwire this now and just look at what we're going to shorten here. Like I say, this is the first time I've seen this like you have here, so there is a little bit of an element of unpicking it, and I'm doing this in the most honest way possible so you can see the decisions as they were being made. There was no forward planning of this. Not that there is much forward planning of any of my videos. I do tend to pick it up and go for it. So these here now, I'm very confident in shortening some of these. That one just comes up quite ugly. I'm going to take that one back. This one here, it's really quite healthy below this point, so that can go. And again with that one there, it's got some forking. So I'm only cutting these roots back to where there's other roots, and I'm leaving a little bit on the end there. And I'm not scared of going quite heavy on them, because I've been, in the past, I've left things a little bit long, being cautious. And then so much root has come from the end, and I've just had to cut it back, and it never pushed it back far enough. So see, there's a nice bit of root on the end there. So you see when I'm saying about it forking out, there is other roots there, and then we can encourage a few more, or maybe we just get a load more further back and we can cut these back a bit heavier. So it's really just generally working around it and unpicking it and just not pushing it too hard. A much more manageable piece, and kind of a planting angle now has been defined there by what we've got. Obviously I didn't chop this back, so when he's cut this, obviously it's had a bit of weight on it, or the saw's got snagged, or whatever's happened. He obviously wasn't keeping these stumps, so he just wanted to lower them and get it gone. But that has got a crack running down there, so I think probably this one will go. But I'm tempted just to leave that for now. Right, so we're coming on to the potting mix that we're going to use for this. I've got an alternative that I'm kind of trialing out. You may have seen me mucking around with this in previous videos, but I'm actually getting good results out of it, so it's not as crazy as it seems versus some of your kitty litter kind of madness. Weston's there, multi-purpose, peat free. Obviously it'd be nice to have peat, but it's getting very hard to get hold of in the UK. I have found some in some places in the past, but it's been hanging around and I probably wouldn't actually rate it. But look at the makeup of that there. Very fibrous, quite like almost loamy. There's a bit of sand added in there. I'm going to go in with like a third of that. I'm just going to break down the worst of the lumps while we're in there. So that's that there. So we're saying roughly a third. This is some kind of gardeny loam with some sharp sand. I think it's been previously used. There's a bit of bark in here as well, just off of various repots, but it's good quality stuff. So I'm going to put some of that in there as well. And it's something that I've been trying to get away from a bit, but on this sort of collective material where we don't want to waste loads of money, I've just got some sharp sand there. So that's kind of got your sand and your gravel in one. And again, gravel, I'm trying to get out of having it in my pots really, because it's just a cold kind of dead thing. It doesn't have any ability to hold moisture or nutrients. It's just, you know, again, it creates some kind of aeration and a bit more drainage maybe. So I'm going to whack a bit of that in there. Let's just bring that together and see how that looks. But you can see already, and I'm squeezing that together, and it still just falls apart. So I'm going to be careful with the watering anyway, but once this tree's established, it will absolutely thrive in that mix, I'm sure. I think we can call that about done. I'll just show you before we pot this one up an alternative that I've got here. So in here I've got crushed red brick, but wood fired brick. So it's definitely a specific brick, you know, not any old brick. Perlite, compost, maybe a little bit of garden loam, and again you squeeze it together and it falls apart. Quite an interesting mix, and I think if I use this in my bonsai going forward, I'd like to put a top dressing over it to kind of, you know, tone that brick down a bit. But I think there's still good potential for mosses and things to grow in there, which is a big part of the bonsai pot for me. I like to see a little bit of moss and another like plant life in there. Back to the plant in hand, I literally just dipped this before we made that mix, so the roots are nice and soaked, and that will, again, I like to have them nice and wet, not just to keep them alive, but the way the soil clings to it when you tip it around, it's kind of nice to know that they've already hugged in with a little bit of soil. You see brilliant drainage in the bottom there. all I am going to do, because it's a large collected tree, I'm going to put a bit of crops in the bottom, just to keep them holes available, but at the same time stop the soil escaping. And I arranged the first bit in some kind of order. I like to use a curve on the thing so it doesn't actually block the holes off, and kind of overlap them and build them up. So once you've got past the holes, you can put straight bits in, it doesn't matter so much. But I do like to tee around them a bit. There we go, look, we can have that there. And not only does it keep the soil in, the terracotta actually pulls a bit of moisture as well, so it's kind of wicking it down in a way as well. So I do like to have the middle mounded up, because what you can do then, you can furl these roots down in, and then once you're happy and you've got your kind of angle right, your planting angle, that one there, we'll leave that for now, but you can push into that mound because all the roots are safe. So I think a realistic planting angle for this is that we're at now. Obviously if new roots develop, then there might be scope to change that at some point. But right now, that's looking pretty good, and I'm just going to tuck those down a little bit further there. I don't want to cut those fibrous roots because that is what's going to keep this tree alive. And there's plenty of them there as well. This part here, I don't mind if it touches the pot because I don't actually intend to have any more roots coming out of that feature. And we're going to call that a feature because we saved it. And at the side here, where we've cut the roots, there's actually room there for new roots to spring out. Or like I say, hopefully we get more roots further up, like that one there develops a bit and we can maybe cut them back a little bit more and get more roots, so it will just fill that flare out. Because obviously that's quite a chunk this side, so we're going to have to get some kind of bulk on this side. You know, I'd imagine this would sit in here for a couple of years without really looking at it. But I'll monitor it, and if I feel like we need to go in there in spring, we will. I'm that confident, you see, I'm talking about repotting it already. That one there. You don't see copper wire at that gauge very often, do you? I actually am quite a fan of copper wire. You can do damage with it very easy, but when it's all you have and you're used to it, I got fairly good with using copper wire, to be fair. So that there that has just accepted that quite nicely and took that down into the level we want it. I'm just going to do the same with this one. I'm just going to pin those three down there out of the way, so it just brings that little piece there down a little bit. So I'm quite happy with that. With this sandy soil as well, like I say, it is a little bit heavy. If you've got better, you know, quality ingredients and money isn't an issue, then, you know, by all means use some pumice and some lava rock or whatever. But the sand in that soil definitely makes a nice fine root, as well as just promoting good root health in general. I've just found in very small little pots, if you do push your luck, a really cold winter, and you might sustain a little bit of damage on, you know, something like a cedar or something, or a pine, it might be a bit more susceptible to it. Right, so I think we've done all we can do with that for now. Obviously, it just needs some time now and a little TLC, but you know, really it's in this plant's hands now. I'll keep it, obviously, like I said, well protected from really severe weather and you know, prolonged wet really. And I just wanted to show you there what we took off of it. We haven't done too bad really. There's some fine roots there, but mostly big bulky ones. This pot is obviously a bit of an illusion. We need the width, but we do not need the depth really at all. So, you know, there's potential to get that into a decent sized pot already. And you could just go pruning into that featurey area if you really wanted to, but the way that naturally rolls off there with no cut marks visible, I think that's the best practice there to keep that for now. But thoroughly enjoyed that. Hopefully you can take something from it. I'll definitely give you an update on how we get on with it. It might be worth putting a black bag over this if it does look like it's struggling a little bit, but being a privet, I'm quite confident it will do something. So a good example of collecting a tree, processing it and actually acquiring it for free. So I hope you've enjoyed that one. I know I have. If you have gained something from it, maybe give it a share. A thumbs up would be nice. And if you're a new viewer, maybe subscribe to the channel. Thank you.